When people think about sugar, they usually think about it as this innocent pleasure, something that makes life a little sweeter. A bit of dessert after dinner, a soda on a hot day, that morning latte with just a spoon or two of sugar to start the day. But here's the uncomfortable truth. In 2025, sugar isn't just a treat anymore. It's a toxin that's quietly rewiring our brains, hijacking our emotions, and reshaping how we think, feel, and function. And the scariest part? Most people don't even realize it's happening. Because the sugar that is hurting you isn't just the kind you sprinkle in your coffee. It is hidden in almost everything you eat. It's in your cereal, your salad dressing, your healthy protein bars, even in things labeled as organic, low-fat, or natural. And what's worse is that your brain is not designed to handle this level of stimulation. See, our brains evolved in a world where sugar was rare, a seasonal luxury found in fruits or honey. When our ancestors tasted sweetness, it was a signal. Hey, this is good. It's safe. It's energy. The brain released dopamine, the same neurotransmitter involved in motivation and pleasure, to encourage that behavior. But now, we've engineered an environment where sugar is constant. We've created an artificial flood of pleasure that the brain was never built to withstand. Over time, this constant overstimulation literally changes how your brain works. It numbs your reward system, dulls your focus, drains your energy, and even increases your risk for anxiety and depression. Sugar doesn't just mess with your waistline, it messes with your mind. When I talk to people struggling with mental health in 2025, one of the most common things I notice is brain fog. That sense that you're always tired, always distracted, always reaching for something to wake you up. Caffeine, screens, snacks. And when you look deeper, a huge part of that fog traces back to one thing: blood sugar dysregulation. You see, when you eat sugar, especially refined or hidden sugars, your blood glucose spikes fast. Your body responds by flooding your system with insulin to bring those levels down. But the crash that follows doesn't just make you tired. It makes you anxious, irritable, mentally foggy. And when that happens day after day, your brain becomes addicted to the cycle. You start craving sugar not for pleasure, but for stability. It's the same mechanism that drives other addictions. The dopamine reward pathway in your brain gets hijacked. And once that happens, your motivation, your focus, your emotional balance all start to crumble. What used to bring you genuine satisfaction, reading, creating, connecting with people, now feels dull compared to the quick hit of sweetness. And it's not your fault, because the modern food industry is built on exploiting exactly that vulnerability. They know your brain lights up for sugar the same way it does for cocaine. That's not hyperbole, that's neuroscience. Studies have shown that sugar activates the nucleus accumbens, the pleasure center of your brain, with intensity similar to hard drugs. That's why you can tell yourself, I'll just have one cookie, and end up finishing the entire box. It's not lack of willpower, it's biology being weaponized against you. But let's talk about what's actually happening inside your brain. When you consume high levels of sugar over time, it leads to something called insulin resistance, not just in your body, but in your brain. That means your neurons become less responsive to insulin, which they actually need to regulate energy. When your brain cells can't get enough energy efficiently, they start to underperform. That's why chronic sugar consumption has been linked to memory loss, brain fog, and even neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, which some researchers now call type 3 diabetes. Sugar also triggers inflammation, not just in your gut, but in your brain. And inflammation is one of the most overlooked drivers of mental illness today. When your brain is inflamed, your neurotransmitters go out of balance. Serotonin drops. Dopamine becomes erratic. Cortisol, your stress hormone, stays high. You start feeling anxious for no reason, depressed without a clear cause, emotionally unstable even when nothing external is wrong. So when someone says they feel mentally off, it's often not just psychological, it's biochemical. Their brain is literally swimming in a neurochemical soup that's out of tune, and sugar is one of the biggest culprits behind that imbalance. Now, here's where it gets darker. The more sugar you eat, the less control you have over your cravings, because your brain starts to lose sensitivity to dopamine. That means you need more sugar to feel the same level of reward. You start chasing that high just to feel normal. And that craving doesn't only apply to food, it starts bleeding into everything else. You start seeking instant gratification in other forms: social media, online shopping, gaming, scrolling. Your brain is learning to chase stimulation, not satisfaction. That's how hidden sugar kills your brain, not suddenly but slowly, by training you to live in a constant state of craving. You become restless. You can't focus for long periods. You feel emotionally unstable. Your motivation collapses. You lose the ability to find joy in ordinary life. And because these symptoms look like stress or depression, most people never connect them to what they're eating. But there's hope, and that's where the science gets really exciting, because your brain is plastic. It can heal. It can rewire. It can rebuild sensitivity and restore balance if you give it the right environment to do so. The brain's ability to recover is one of the most beautiful things about being human. You can undo years of damage, but it takes awareness, consistency, and compassion. The first step is understanding that you're not broken, you're conditioned. Your brain has been responding exactly as it's supposed to an unnatural level of stimulation it was never designed for. So the process of healing is really the process of teaching your brain how to be human again, how to find pleasure and balance, not excess. When people start reducing sugar, the first thing they usually notice isn't joy. It's withdrawal. And that's because your dopamine pathways are recalibrating. You might feel tired, irritable, even a little sad. That's normal. That's your brain detoxing from artificial highs. Think of it like recalibrating a compass that's been magnetized in the wrong direction for years. It takes time for it to find true north again. Now, science has shown us 5 powerful ways to help your brain recover from sugar damage, and I'll go into each one deeply as we go along. But I want to start with something simple: awareness, because awareness is the foundation of all change. Once you start noticing how sugar hides in your daily life, not just in sweets, but in sauces, bread, drinks, even health snacks, you start taking back control. Every label you read becomes an act of self-defense. The second thing, and this is fascinating, is how balancing blood sugar can completely change your emotional world. Studies show that when your blood sugar levels are stable, your mood becomes more consistent. You're less reactive. You think clearer. You make better decisions. It's like lifting a fog you didn't even know was there, and the reason is biochemical. When your glucose levels spike and crash, your brain's energy supply becomes unstable. Neurons need a constant, steady flow of glucose to function properly. When that flow becomes erratic, your brain literally struggles to maintain emotional regulation. It's not willpower, it's energy regulation. So when you eat foods that keep your glucose stable, fiber, protein, healthy fats, you're not just protecting your body. You're stabilizing your mind. You're giving your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for focus, decision-making, and emotional regulation, the consistency it needs to do its job. But here is something even deeper. Sugar doesn't just hijack your brain's chemistry. It hijacks your identity. It teaches you to associate comfort with consumption. Every time you're stressed, you reach for something sweet. Every time you're sad, you use food as emotional armor. Slowly, sugar becomes a language. The way you cope, the way you reward yourself, the way you self-soothe. And that's what makes this conversation about more than just nutrition. It's about emotional awareness, because underneath every craving is a feeling that's asking to be felt. Sometimes it's loneliness. Sometimes it's boredom. Sometimes it's fear. The sugar is just a shortcut to avoid feeling it. So healing isn't about cutting sugar out of your diet. It is about learning to sit with what is underneath the craving. That's where a real transformation begins. If you can pause, even for 10 seconds, before giving in to that craving and ask yourself, what am I really needing right now? You start shifting from unconscious reaction to conscious awareness. And the moment awareness enters, the cycle begins to break. Sugar is killing our brains not just through chemistry, but through disconnection from our bodies, our hunger cues, our emotions. It dulls our sensitivity to life. But the beautiful thing is, when you begin to heal from sugar addiction, that sensitivity returns. Food tastes richer. Mornings feel calmer. Your thoughts become clearer. It's like colors start coming back into your world. And when that awareness starts to grow, something interesting happens. Your cravings begin to lose their power. You start to see sugar not as comfort, but as control. You notice how that quick hit never actually satisfies you. It only feeds the cycle. The moment you see that pattern clearly, you can no longer be trapped by it in the same way. Your brain starts to wake up. The fog begins to lift. You begin to remember what real energy feels like, not the jittery rush of caffeine and sugar, but the calm, steady focus that comes from a body that's nourished and balanced. You begin to realize that clarity, peace, and creativity were never gone. They were just buried under layers of chemical noise. This isn't about guilt or shame. It's about reclaiming your mind from a system that profits from your distraction. Every small choice, drinking water instead of soda, eating a meal with real ingredients, taking a breath before reacting, is an act of rebellion. It's you saying, I want to be awake again. And that's how healing begins, not with perfection, but with presence.